Hey man, imagine if you're Sauron, right? Some ding-dongs get together and conspired amongst themselves like a bunch of bullies to throw your ring, the one you lost and you want back. Maybe it's your grandma's ring, right? Into a dang volcano. You'd be mad too. Man, I gotta tell you, ever since I was a little kid, I identified with the bad guys. My brother wants to be He-Man, right? That's cool. I want to be Skeletor. He's cooler looking anyways, dude. Wow, dude, look at Arnold. He's hunting down the Predator with his giant muscles and all of his steroids. That's great, but check out the Predator, dude. He's got lasers and flinging discs. You got Donald Trump out there, you got Joe Biden out there, and honestly, I can't even tell who the bad guy is on that one. I'm gonna leave that alone. But you know, Sauron is an interesting character from the Lord of the Rings. Now Sauron's lust and pride increased until he knew no bounds, and he determined to make himself master of all things in Middle-earth and to destroy the elves, and to compass, if he might, the downfall of Numenor. He brooked no freedom, nor any rivalry, and he named himself Lord of the Earth, a mask he could still wear so that if he wished he might deceive the eyes of men, seeming to them wise and fair, but he ruled rather by force and fear, if they might avail, and those who perceived his shadow spreading over the world called him the Dark Lord, and named him the Enemy, and he gathered under his government all the evil things of the days of Morgoth that remained on earth or beneath it, and the orcs were at his command and multiplied like flies. I mean, listen, let's flip things around for a second, alright? Sauron had his own wants, his needs, and desires, dude. To him, Gandalf and the elves and the stupid hobbits were the bad guys. Just because the orcs aren't conventionally attractive doesn't mean they're evil. Then you got Frodo out there, oh, let's throw this ring in a volcano, Sam. Maybe he would have been a good leader, Sauron. Who knows? But then he got bogged down in a document scandal, you know what I mean? He retained the secret government plans to invade Numenor, then Aragorn gets elected, it's a whole thing. Alright, so let's tear this Precon apart, buddy. We'll go through the new cards, we're going to go through the reprints. These decks are retailing for about $50 plus tax, and they seem like a decent deal to me. I can remember a time when the Precons were about 35 bucks, but to be fair, that was 10 years ago in 2014. Aside from the foils, I mean, those are not cohesive at all. These decks are a little more cohesive and more powerful than they were back in 2014 anyway. So yeah, man, let's start with the man himself. He's ditched his faceless, spiky mask from the movies and adopted a flamey hat that shows off all the dental work he had done out in Numenor, dude. I like this aesthetic. He appears more like a sorcerer than he was in the movies. If you look through the lore, well, basically you just see a bunch of nonsense in the lore, I don't know. But the fire hat makes sense and looks cool, which is the most important thing for a bad guy. The Dark Lord Sauron, Lord of the Rings. 5 blue, black, and a red for a legendary creature, Avatar Horror. It's a 9/9. When you cast this spell, amass Orcs 5, mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Has Trample. Whenever a commander an opponent controls dies, the ring tempts you. Sweet Caroline, that's a lot of text. This is a cast trigger, so if this gets countered, you amass a 5/5 Orc, you mill 5 cards, and reanimate a creature. That's really impactful for 8 mana, honestly. And you get a 9/9 Trampler as a nice little cherry on top, dude. This is a straight reanimator spell on a commander, comparable maybe to Nethroi, although this does some different things, and is in Grixis colors. Alright, so who the heck is this other guy? You got Saruman of the White Hand. 1 blue, black, and a red for a legendary creature, Avatar Wizard. It's a 2/5. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass Orcs X, where the X is that spell's mana value. Goblins and Orcs you control have Ward 2. Over all his works, a dark smoke hung and wrapped itself about the sides of Orthanc. This is a very interesting commander that rewards bigger spells to maximize a big old orc army and the power to protect it. Saruman as a character kind of illustrates how Sauron seizes on the ambitions of the mighty and corrupts them. Saruman is kind of its own deck, and I didn't build into it honestly for this upgrade. For my upgrade, we're leaning into Reanimator. So listen, before we get too far into that, let's take a look at some notable reprints. All the cards in these decks have new art, and in my humble opinion, it looks awesome. Null Spine Dragon, 5 red for a creature dragon. It's a 7/5 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard your hand and draw cards equal to the damage dealt to target opponent this turn. Of the 7 rings of power the Dwarf Kings possessed, 3 Sauron has recovered. The others the dragons have consumed. Really cool card, dude. This is great in a Reanimator deck where we're swinging in with massive beasts and then drawing a whole grip of cards second main phase. Interesting card that I've used in a bunch of decks before. Hey, how about this guy, the old Notion Thief? 2 blue and a black for a creature, human rogue. It's a 3/1 with flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. I love the new art on this guy, one of the most oppressive cards out there, and he's just a dude in a hobbit house or something just messing up the place. This is a generically powerful early play. Flash this guy in, but there isn't really any synergy in the deck for it to become too oppressive. And here we have the old Scourge of the Throne, dude. 4 red for a creature dragon. It's a 5/5 with flying, has dethrone. Whenever Scourge of the Throne attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, untap all attacking creatures. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. This is a fantastic addition to any big splashy deck and was a pretty pricey reprint. It's only got to attack the player with the most life. You can send Sauron at somebody else. Extract from Darkness. Listen, I just like this card. I don't know if it's the best card in the world, whatever, dude, I don't really care. 3 blue and a black for a sorcery. Each player mills 2 cards, then you put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I know this is cheap, but it's a fantastic card with great new art, dude. Check that art out. It's gorgeous. This can hit any graveyard, so remember that as well. Living Death, dude. I mean, come on. The dudes in my play group, I think I've traumatized them. Whenever I hit 5 mana, they can like smell this card. If I'm playing any deck that has black in it, they're like, oh, I think a Living Death's coming pretty soon, dude. It's incredibly powerful. Even if you're getting back, a 7-drop and a 6-drop, you're clearing the board first. I have shown them the power of a good Living Death. How about this classic Reanimate, dude? 1 black mana for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield. Under your control, you lose life equal to its mana value. This is perpetually a $10 to $15 card. I love this card. I collect the old school version from Tempest. I got a whole bunch of them, and this is a universally great reprint. It's the most efficient Reanimator spell, can hit any graveyard. Arcane Denial is another card that's heavily used in Commander. 1 and a blue for an instant counter target spell. Its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. You draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Very efficient counter spell that's been around forever and showcases Sauron's sorceress side, dude. This thing is still $3 to $4. And last but not least, the Treasure Nabber. 2 and a red for a creature, Goblin Rogue. It's a 3/2. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, gain control of that artifact until the end of your next turn. To his dismay, he could not both fight and keep hold of his treasure. This is a generically powerful early game goblin that kind of acts as a red stacks piece. I've seen people react wildly differently to this. Some people just kind of give you the thing. Other people spend targeted removal to get rid of it ASAP. They're like, I hate this thing, get rid of it. Either way, it's a useful and interesting red tax piece that was about $10. Alright man, how about new cards? That's the exciting part of getting new Precon. What's going to be the next Dockside Extortionist? Well, I don't know what's going to be the next Dockside, but Cavern Horde Dragon is bonkers good. 7 red for a creature dragon, it's a 6/6. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. Has flying, trample, and haste. Whenever Cavern Horde Dragon deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. In playtesting, this is my Reanimator target. This is the anti-treasure, anti-artifact token technology that we need, dude. The haste puts this just over the top. And that casting cost brings it down a bit, but late game, this costing you 4 to 5 mana if your opponents get set up. Every pod has some degree of artifact proliferation. Everybody's got Soul Ring and Arcane Signet. So we'll see how this shakes out in real life games, but the art is fantastic. The Flample haste ability is wild, just a great card. Then we have the Lord of the Nazgul, not the Lord of the Rings, dude. 3 blue and a black for a legendary creature, Wraith Noble. It's a 4/3 with flying. Wraiths you control have protection from ring bearers. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with menace. Then if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have base power and toughness 9/9 until end of turn. Getting real sick of saying the word Wraith, dude. Aw geez, I just did a video on this guy. He's very much his own build. This is a beefed up Talran Spellslinger payoff and win condition that doesn't look overly threatening until you're swinging in with 72 evasive power on turn 7. This guy deserves his own deck. Let's take a look at this guy, the Monstrosity of the Lake. That's what they call my dad when he goes swimming. 4 and a blue for a legendary creature, Kraken. It's 4/6. When this guy enters the battlefield, you may pay 5. If you do, tap all creatures your opponents control, then put a stun counter on each of those creatures. If a permanent with a stun counter will become untapped, remove 1 stun counter from it instead. Has island cycling for 2 generic mana. I like this card. I'm not sure if it does enough to be broadly useful outside this Reanimator strategy. 5 mana is a ton. I love love the flavor though, and this will make it into a Runo Stormkirk and some other Kraken decks for sure. I like this thing a lot. The Rampaging War Mammoth, 5 red for a creature elephant. It's a 9/7 with trample. Has cycling for X and 2 and a red. When you cycle Rampaging War Mammoth, destroy up to X target artifacts. This guy, I love this guy in the movies, dude. Just these massive siege towers thundering across the battlefield. You got some weirdos driving them, you know, some bald guys. And then Legolas had to ruin the whole thing by surfing around on their horns like an incredibly froofy Tony Hawk, dude. Anyways, this deck has a few excellent cycling cards, and this ability to clear out soul rings and arcane signets on the other side of the battlefield early game and get reanimated later is unbelievably useful. It's one of my favorite cards. I'm not sure if it goes in this deck in particular, but it's part of the Precon. So we got Shelob, Dread Weaver, 3 and a black for a legendary creature. Spider Demon, it's a 3/3. Probably Shelob, but not Shelob. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, exile it. Has 2 and a black, put a creature card exiled with Shelob, Dreadweaver, into its owner's graveyard and put 2 +1/+1 counters on Shelob, draw a card. Pretty cool. X and 1 and a black, put target creature card with mana value X exiled with Shelob onto the battlefield under your control. Very interesting build around, very mana intensive, but able to hose graveyard strategies a la Dauthi Voidwalker. The ability to reanimate and not tap is crazy, especially in a big black mana deck. The Balrog of Moria, 4 black and a red for a legendary creature, Avatar Demon. It's an 8/8 with trample and haste. When this guy dies, you may exile it. When you do, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls has cycling for 3 and a red. When you cycle it, create 2 treasure tokens. Out of the 3 Balrogs in this set, this is the beefiest and the best, dude. 8/8 trample and haste for 7 mana, and that ability to cycle while saving up your mana is key when your commander is 8 mana, dude. This goes in a ton of reanimator decks. I would be surprised if this is a bulk rare. I'd be happy to play it, and the art is amazing. Subjugate the Hobbits, dude. 5 blue for a sorcery, gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. Damn, dude, why is old Beardo subjugating my little hobbit friends, dude? Maybe because they tried to throw his ring in a volcano. This is really weird. It's a situational card that may get you an entire token swarm, a couple mana dorks, or basically nothing, I don't know. It's expensive, it's swingy, and has a place in some decks. Not sure what to make of this, but I actually kept it in the deck because of how interesting it is. Too greedily, too deep. Not the first girl to tell me that. 5 black and a red for a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature, dude. A 7 mana reanimator spell and damage based board wipe. This is very interesting in a ton of decks. Very pricey though. Really needs to be built around, but extremely powerful. It goes great in this deck. I mean, the way I built this deck, you sandbag some little silly gooses and reanimate a dang Balrog and you're good to go. Wake the Dragon. You're bringing Bruce Lee back from the dead, dude. 4 black and a red for a sorcery. Create a 6/6 black and red creature token, dragon creature token with flying, menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, gain control of target artifact that player controls. Has flashback for 8 mana, dude. So this is amazing, especially in decks that want to cheat spells. The downfall with those decks is often they don't have a board presence with blockers and big fatties out there. This needs a haste enabler to really shine, but can be a huge swing depending on what you're facing. I don't know what part of this is in the Lord of the Rings, dude, but this guy's waking up and smelling the Folgers and smelling the farts. Alright, man, Relic of Sauron. 4 generic mana for an artifact. It has tap, add 2 mana in any combinations of blue, black, or red. That's awesome right there. It also has 3 in tap, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. While the power of Sauron grew, light and living things forsook his borders. So first off, this comes in untapped. Fantastic. You can cast this in another smaller spell if you want. Secondly, this can feed your graveyard with the second ability. Plus it's a hat, dude. We don't have enough magic cards for bald dudes out there. I heard that's what drove Sauron's maniacal need for power. He went bald early, ergo the hats. Alright, listen, this isn't all the new cards, but the last one I want to talk about is Orcish Siege Master. 2 and a red for a creature, Orc Soldier. It's a 0/5 with trample. Other orcs and goblins you control have trample. That's pretty sweet. Whenever Orcish Siege Master attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This grants excellent evasion to our orc army that we're going to be amassing. And this guy is swinging for 9 if we get our commander out. It's pretty good for 3 mana. So yeah, listen, I think Saruman is a separate build all of his own. I want to create a goblin deck around that guy, but this just isn't his moment with lots of big spells and stuff like that. The Dark Lord is the guy we bought this deck for, so let's build into a wild, swingy reanimator commander deck. I got this deck humming like a dang refrigerator, dude, trust me. So Saruman and all that spell slinger payoffs have got to go. Even the sweet gutter snipe, dude, look at that art, absolutely amazing, gorgeous. There is a goblin sub theme that is pretty rad in the main deck, but not for this version of the deck. If you want to see all the cards I took out, take a look at the deck list and click on the little more button with the 3 vertical dots. You can select view history and see all the changes I made to the Precon. I do want to highlight the stuff I added to the deck, so let's start there. Alright, first off, our commander costs 8, and this deck was only running a couple ramp options, so we're going to need way more ramp, dude. I added all the signets, couple talismans. These are cheap, effective additions that help us fix for color and give us impactful early game plays. And speaking of which, we're building into a reanimator flavored deck. So we want as many graveyard tutors as we can get, dude. And Tomb is only $6 right now. This was a $30 card not so long ago. It's one of the most expensive ads in this deck, but it's black for an instant. Search your library for a card, put that card in your graveyard, then shuffle. And Tomb that Cavern Horde Dragon, buddy. That is the move. You know what else gets that Cavern Horde buddy in there? Unmarked Grave. Modern Horizons 2 is a treasure trove of excellent cards, and this goes in a ton of decks. One of my favorite cards overall in the dang world, buddy. You also have Violent Tumor. It's a 4-drop, excellent blocker that entombs whatever the heck you want. Looks like Sauron's old college roommate making spaghetti in the dang hot pot. So let's get these monsters back out of the yard with Exhume and Animate Dead. The dream scenario, and one that plays out fairly often if you build redundancy, is Entomb whatever, Exhume at turn 2. Animate Dead is kinda pricey at about $5, but get the classic version for maximum Sauron style. It's just some skeletons going out there Umpang Gangnam style. Now, Phyrexian Delver is a great 5-drop that we can use to get our creatures out, and slap in Victimize for later in the game, sack an army token or something, get 2 things out of the yard. The next thing we need is some dang reanimation targets. This deck comes stocked with some real styling animals to put in the graveyard, but there really aren't enough of them, so we added a few bangers. And first up is Burning Rune Demon, 4 black for a creature, Demon Berserker. It's a 6/6 with flying. When this guy enters the battlefield, you may search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names. If you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them. Put the chosen card in your hand and the other into your graveyard, then shuffle. This is amazing for feeding our graveyard, and it's just a big slapping beater. How about Big Bird, dude? No, not that Big Bird. The Lord of Change. 6 and a blue for a creature demon with flying ward 3. It's a big old 6/6, dude. Has Architect of Deception. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. That's how you deceive your foes, dude. You draw 3 cards. I like that. And then clang and bang in for 6 damage in the air, brother. And of course, Garuda's in there because he makes a cameo in the movie as Aragorn's ex-wife. And how about the old Scion of Darkness? 5 black for a creature avatar. It's a 6/6 with trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Fantastic. The real utility of this card is the 3 cycling. So this guy can cycle himself right into the yard. And that's what they should have made Sauron, dude. I wish they remade the art using this guy as a template, man. He's a big, muscly, dark lord dude with giant pecs, brother. So yeah, man, you get these guys, they come out and they just sit there all game waiting to be removed. Our commander resolves and hangs around for a turn cycle doing nothing, staring down every bullet that your opponents have in their decks, dude. Every removal spell ever printed in the world. Heck no, dude. We gotta buy the big guy some shoes. We got Lightning Greaves, we got Swiftfoot Boots. These need to be in there as generic and powerful protection pieces. Gotta protect an 8-mana commander, dude. This guy has the hat. All he needs is the boots. That's how you do fashion, brother. Let me tell you about fashion, dude. Alright, listen, man, I also put in some wheels. You know why? Because you got to refill your hand and you get to refill your graveyard at the same time. So we got this old guy, the Wheel of Misfortune. We got Windfall out there. These are fantastic cards in this deck, and they have synergy with the aforementioned Notion Thief, dude. I also put in Mob Rule, because why not? Because if the game's almost over and they took out your commander, you got nothing left, you might as well just swing with a big old Mob Rule and win the game. I've seen it happen to myself a million times, and everybody hates when I do it. So listen, man, Goldfish my deck as I built it. It's under $40 for all the upgrades, and some of those cards you may have lying around. It's a fun reanimator romp that works really well and hums, dude, trust me. I like messing around with this deck. There are so many good cards just waiting to be entombed and reanimated. The cycling abilities on some of the fatties are really nice. This deck just needs more concentration in that direction. You need more entombers, reanimators, fatties, and some other miscellaneous stuff. That's how you build a deck, brother. You just go out there and put a bunch of cards in it. And remember, folks, you can cycle Decree of Pain, okay? You can cycle it. You can even do it at instant speed, brother. Getting hit by a token swarm, cycle Decree of Pain. Staring down a bunch of drakes, cycle it. Want to survive a turn and it's close, dude? Just give them -2/-2. Cycle the dang Decree of Pain. Nobody ever sees this come and draw a card and laugh at your own genius. Sneaky G from Better Commander signing off.